Hi, welcome to another episode of Why East Asia Why. So, as you all know, these cute little countries in East Asia are soon about to go extinct because young people nowadays are really not into finding a partner or starting a family, and the last thing on their mind is having kids. Like, y'all like to complain about Japan's birth rate being really low, but did you know that Japan's birth rate is actually the highest amongst East Asian countries? And whenever Western media seems shocked by this birth rate situation, I'm always like, dude, what do you expect? People don't even want to go on dates anymore. How the hell do you expect them to have kids? Last year alone, the condom market in China shrank by 9.1% and is expected to fall further in the coming years. Yeah, it's low-key turning into the land of the sexually apathetic. So it's really no wonder that over the past decade, nothing has flopped harder than the marriage and birth rates of these countries, each year setting a new low. And you know what? I really don't blame the younger generation. In fact, I am fully on their side. So in this video, I like to briefly talk about why many Gen Zs, like myself, have completely ditched the idea of finding love and no way in hell do we ever want kids. And it basically boils down to two words. Why bother? And under this overarching framework, I will branch off to two factors. Factor number one, romance in real life is cringe. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the concept of love or romance, as many people have no problem consuming romance in the form of dramas, novels, manga, etc., as long as it does not happen in real life. So essentially, we're presented with this huge paradox in East Asia, whereby it has the largest shipping culture in the world and arguably the most advanced romance content ecosystems, featuring some of the most diverse and bizarre romance genres you could ever imagine. Like, have you ever heard of the ABO romance genre?
I want that proud S-level alpha to be my exclusive omega.
Anyhow, the point is, on the one hand, East Asia has this booming, bustling, world-leading romance industry, yet on the other hand, in the real world, young people are becoming less and less interested in love. What a strange paradox, you may think. But as someone who's part of the shipping community with 10 plus years of experience shipping fictional characters since middle school, I can tell you with confidence that there's actually a very logical explanation for this paradox. If you can experience love vicariously through fictional characters risk-free, then why would you want to get involved in real-life romance, which is often messy and full of risks? Especially in the past few years, on social media, there has been a growing trend of romance and marriage being portrayed as nothing but a risky endeavor, a nuisance that only causes inconvenience to daily life.
独身男性のおよそ4割にデートの経験がないことが
저 혼자 먹고 살기도 힘든데 부인이나 아이까지 있으면 더 힘들 것 같아서
自分の今の生活が充実していて、リセットしなくて一人でいたいな。
According to a survey on Gen Z behavior, more than 60% of Gen Zs in Japan, regardless of gender, feel that romantic relationships are at least somewhat of a hassle. A word that perfectly reflects how many people feel about romance these days. Like, you know how in wedding ceremonies, the vows usually go something like,
for better or worse, in sickness and in health,
or something along the lines of,
for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer.
for richer, for poorer.
So the underlying message is that by having a partner, you've got someone by your side to navigate challenges together, someone to help you deal with stress and suffer through hardships that life throws at you. However, nowadays on social media, the dominant narrative seems to be that marriage is the source of all stress and suffering. Like, if you stay single, the worst challenge you ever face is probably something like career stress. But once you get married and have kids, you're opening the door to a whole new level of potential problems. There's almost a 50% chance that your marriage is going to fall apart. You might get cheated on or lose half of your hard-earned money. Your kids may grow up to become serial killers. So much so that there's a popular term on the Chinese internet nowadays that basically says not marrying and not having kids keeps you safe. Last year, when Millie Bobby Brown announced her marriage, the response from Chinese netizens was overwhelmingly negative. Many people questioned why she would marry so young at the height of her career. Some would even call her having a love brain, a derogatory term used to describe someone who prioritizes romance over quote-unquote serious life matters like career and making more money. A love brain is looked down upon because pursuing romance at the expense of career is largely perceived as irrational and almost regarded as low IQ behavior. Because what do we call people pursuing irrational goals? Idiots, and their actions borderline cringe. And I've noticed that this narrative is particularly popular on platforms like the Coup and the Red Notebook, to the point that content boasting about being single or the celibate lifestyle is getting very popular these days. The algorithm favors it and it tends to be extremely well received. For example, this post says 36 years old, not married, no kids. Life is awesome. The best decision I've ever made at 39 years old, not married, no kids. 30 years old without kids, it's like living your 20s but with money. And hopping over to the Korean side, this post from the Coup in 2022 is a really interesting demonstration of the mainstream public opinion regarding marriage and birth rates nowadays. So the post itself is about some statistics on the unmarried percentages among Korean males. It says that Korean males aged 40 are 40% unmarried, 35-year-olds are 73% unmarried, and 30-year-olds are 93.5% unmarried. A very shocking figure which will suggest that the vast majority of males are single. Now, I'm not sure how accurate these numbers are. They seem a little bit over the top to me. So maybe take them with a grain of salt. But what I really want to show you is the comments from Korean netizens. Alright, so the first comment has now been removed. But I remember when it first came out, it was something along the lines of, "That's great, keep pushing," essentially cheering this trend on.
Let's all stay single. No, I can't even get a job, so what? The employment rate seems more serious than the single rate. I have no intention of getting married. I need to get a job to save up money for marriage. Of course, even if I had money, I wouldn't plan on doing it.
Like, you will have a hard time even finding a single comment that shows any enthusiasm towards marriage. So, in a nutshell, as messed up as this may sound, not marrying has almost become this sort of politically correct sentiment on social media in this region. While people with a love brain are criticized, people with a career brain are praised, lauded for having a clear head and thinking rationally, which begs the question, why can't we have both? After all, career and romantic relationships are not enemies. They're not mutually exclusive. You can have a career and a partner at the same time, like so many ordinary Americans, Europeans, or whatever. Well, unfortunately, in East Asia, especially in the bigger cities, having both a career and a partner can seem like a luxury, which brings us to my second point. Factor number 2, love is expensive. In order to find a partner, you need to have 3 things: a place to live, a job, and some spare time. However, in East Asia, these 3 things are almost like incompatible in the sense that having any 2 would guarantee not having the third thing. Like, if you have a job that pays enough to afford a mortgage, then most likely you won't have time after work for dating. If you have a job and spare time, then most likely your job pays meager wages that won't cover the ridiculously high housing prices. Now, there's a lot of videos and articles out there arguing that inflation and higher prices are the leading causes of why East Asians are not getting married. But inflation is a global phenomenon, not specific to East Asia. And I would even argue that prices are higher in places like America or the UK nowadays. I feel like it's the combination of a terrible work culture plus the ridiculously high housing prices that make the situation in East Asia particularly dire. In one of my past videos, I talked about how terrible the relations between these 3 countries have always been and that it's very difficult for them to agree on things. But one thing that will always bring them together is their shared implementation of this horrendous work culture. I'm sure you've all heard about it. The Koloshi culture in Japan, the 12-hour shift in Korea, and the 996 system in China. When you work that many hours, your body will go into survival mode, and going on dates is probably the last thing on your mind. Look, I work a normal 8-hour job, and oftentimes after work, I don't feel like doing anything other than lying on my bed and passing out. So I can't imagine what it's like working a 12 or 14-hour shift every day. All that work to pay for a tiny-ass apartment by the subway line in Seoul, Tokyo, or Shanghai, where the median housing price is basically your entire life salary. Like, whenever I see videos of young couples unboxing their tiny cage apartments, I'm always like, I feel bad for the kids who have to grow up in this environment because in my mind, kids belong in the playground or at least a space large enough to play hide and seek with their parents, not this 300 square foot shoebox thingy. A lot of people underestimate just how detrimental high housing prices can be to society. It not only discourages spending, but pretty much discourages many other life decisions because under this massive housing pressure, life can feel like walking a tightrope. rope. One small mistake and everything can fall apart. As a result, many are postponing marriages or straight up ditching it altogether. Plus, East Asia being such a competitive environment is another major reason why many young people don't want kids. Having experienced fierce school competitions as a child and the horrendous work culture as an adult, the last thing you want is to give birth to another cog in the system.
私たちの世代は熾烈な競争を強いられてきました。これからもっと激しくなっていくと思います。
子供に好きなことやらせてあげられないのに子供をとりあえず作るってある意味親のエゴかなって。
Now, you may ask, but do you guys not care about your countries going extinct? And to that we say, no, we don't. In fact, in recent years, there's this really interesting dichotomy whereby the governments of these countries are trying all kinds of desperate measures to increase the birth rate, even just by a little bit, from cash incentives to postponing divorce permits. But the people are just not buying it, especially netizens. On the internet, whenever the government releases any policy aimed at increasing birth rates, the reactions from netizens are almost always negative or indifferent, with the top comments usually along the lines of, just let the rich give birth and leave us alone, or why don't these policymakers give more birth themselves? Now, you may also wonder, but according to science and sociology, humans have a natural tendency to seek love, and romance is a natural progression. Well, to that I say, yes, but with today's technology and diverse lifestyle, romance can be experienced vicariously or outsourced. Science has found out that by shipping other people, your brain releases similar chemicals as if you are in a real relationship yourself. It will never be the same, I know, but considering all the aforementioned risks, it does seem like a pretty cost-effective way to get by. Explaining why there's such a huge shipping culture in East Asia, and yet many shippers have no interest in entering real-life relationships. Along with many other things like the idol industry where fans are encouraged to form parasocial relations with their idols, host clubs, and AI girlfriends, and whatnot. It's messed up, I know, but it's a messed up world, so yeah, who are we to judge? And that's it for this video. Although it ends on a bleak note, I wish you the best of luck on your romantic endeavors, and like always, thanks for watching.